Welcome to the Heal and Transform podcast with your host, Andrew Ramsden. Andrew finds top experts to pick their brains about what coaches, therapists, and other complementary practitioners can do to level up and amplify the work so we can heal and transform the world together.
G'day everyone, and welcome to the Heal and Transform podcast. Very excited to have with me today Christine Corcoran. Christine is a business and mindset master coach. She's a podcast host, not to mention a speaker, a workshop facilitator, and a host and creator of the Love What You Do collective events, which are based out of Brisbane, that you might have been to, I'm sure. So as a coach to coaches, Christine has some really valuable insights to share with us today. We're going to share some of the challenges that coaches face getting their energy out there and in business, and how she helps them with that, and also what we can do to amplify the work in general. So this is going to be really exciting.
Oh, hi Andrew, thanks so much for having me.
G'day Christine, how are you today?
Great, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. What I think is really exciting is I feel like you're a real partner in crime, and I say that because we both have this passion for helping coaches, therapists, and healers level up what they do in different ways. So, I mean, I'm very focused on technology and other ways to leverage in particular. And I know your focus is the mindset side of things and the business coaching. But I know we both have this similar journey of going through our own transformations, realizing how powerful this is, and then being really passionate about, well, how do we just bring this to more people? How do we level up what we're doing and amplify the work? So that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I think every coach goes through this element of when they start to learn all the tools and the skills, it's like, why are we not taught this in life? Like, why are we not taught how to deal with our emotions and understand the brain in high school? Like, it would have been so much more useful back then.
That's true. Why aren't we taught this in high school?
Who knows? I think it's, the school system, I think, is still running on the old school system, and this is very new and can still be seen as woo-woo. So,
yeah, that's for sure. I mean, look, and that was part of the journey for me as well. I came from that very logical, rational background, and I definitely saw it as woo-woo, and that kept me away at arm's length for a long time, for many years. So I think that's part of this broader question of how do we amplify the work, is how do we bring people on the journey? We had a really good chat a few weeks ago now about how we do this, how we amplify the work for the community as a whole. And you were able to just rattle off 5 of the most amazing levers that I think we could apply. And we'll probably come back to that later and dig into those. But one of them was, how do we bring people on this journey from where they are? And they have all these blocks and limiting beliefs around what the work actually means. And it's very scary, and it hasn't been demystified fully yet. Still a lot of stigma around that. I think that's a really important one. But tell me more about yourself and what you do, because I guess I've given you a bit of an intro, but I'd love to hear it in your words. How do you look at this problem?
Yeah, amazing. So thank you for the intro. It was so good. And it makes me proud to say how far I have come. And it's really nice to be able to take a moment to really reflect on everything that I've created with Love What You Do and my podcast, and how I help women to overcome the fear of success, all the limiting beliefs, the mindset, all those challenges that are so highlighted when we start our own businesses, that and especially if we're growing and elevating to that next stage, we need to have that next version of ourselves as well. So my evolution, I think, has been, I was in a corporate role for about 6 years working with business owners to help them elevate their businesses and grow their businesses. And there was this element of that we had the same tools I would give to every single business owner to help grow their business, yet some would take those tools and run with it and make a real success of their business. And then others would take the tools, and then I'd speak to them in a month's time, 2 weeks time even, and they'd done nothing. And I was like, what is going on here? Why is this not working? And so I was able to then go, well, okay, what is it about me? How am I delivering it? How can I support them in a more impactful way? And so I went back and then studied, behavioral profiling, how to understand how people take on information. And then, started implementing those little bits, and then got so sucked into personal development for my own personal, but also for helping other people. So once I then started to learn all the things that comes with coaching, I started implementing that with the business owners. And I think it's really mindful that it's not necessarily woo-woo at all. It's just understanding human nature. And when we start understanding humans on such a deeper level, we can communicate with them so much better. And people don't want to be told what to do. None of us want to be told what to do. But when we highlight strengths in someone and when we allow them to make their own choices and their own decisions to move forward, it's really empowering for them to do that. So I was able to then implement that with the business owners that I was working with, and then loved the mindset element so much that I was like, I have to do this full time. It's like so on my heart. And, I went through that journey of learning all the skills and going through the coaching college and going through that exact moment where it's like, oh my God, everybody should know this. And I even see now, like, coaches go in and they study and they go through their qualifications, and then there'll be such a small amount of coaches that actually do something with it. And for me, I feel really saddened by that. I feel like we need more coaches in this day and age. There is more and more people committing suicide. There is more and more depression and anxiety cases being diagnosed. There's so many challenges when it comes to our mindset that these tools are transformational. And I am so drawn to working with coaches to help them get out in the world and help more people. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because I can see the impact that it makes on people. And even though I work with people in business, it shifts their whole life. Like, it's not just, I'm going to help you, be seen to gain new clients and make more money. Yeah, that's a byproduct. But you know what? You're going to freaking love yourself so much more, believe in yourself, and be able to overcome any challenge that comes your way. And that's transformational.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? And I've been through personal development experiences that feel really similar for me, where I've walked away feeling like amazing, but then the change is actually stuck. So some of the work, the change, you feel great walking away, and then you kind of backslide. And then there's other work that you do where the change sticks with you. And I feel like this is what you're talking about when you're talking about the difference between, well, here's a wonderful piece of training, and some people actually latch onto it and other people don't. It's that deeper work, isn't it, that makes the difference.
Absolutely, because it comes back to whether they believe they can. And a lot of the time there was so many limiting beliefs and self-doubt talk going on in their minds that those business owners would have the tools, but there'd be something holding them back. And so that's the whole mindset element. And that's why this stuff is so transformational, because it's not just having a chat, it's actually shifting deep-seated limiting beliefs that have been keeping you stuck your whole life. And, depending on how many years you've been on this planet, we've been conditioned for so many years to behave a certain way. And we learn ways of reacting and ways of being in the world, and that becomes our identity. And if we don't shift and change that to be able to be a better person and be a different person, then we will stay in the same stuck patterns. So that's why I guess it is that next level of change. And I guess, people that I work with, I don't just work with coaches. And it's so interesting when I have someone come and work with me when they're not a coach, and they're like, I don't know what you did to me, but I'm so different. And I don't even think that. Like, a client said to me specifically yesterday, she's like, that old story of like not being good enough, it just is not even a factor anymore. Like, I don't even go there, don't even think about that. And I'm like, well, that's the best part. That's like the best compliment you can have, is to know that you are absolutely worthy of anything that you desire.
Isn't that beautiful? And what an amazing gift to be able to give to people. And I guess
that's what we do it, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess as coaches, we have these tools and we can work with others in this space, but we're not immune to these limiting mindsets and beliefs ourselves, right? And as much work as each of us have done, there's always new layers that you discover. And what I find in particular is, as you address the problems at one level, problems don't go away. You still end up with problems in life. Hopefully there are a set of better quality problems, and you kind of spiral up as you try to address it.
Yeah.
So,
and I think you go through stages of like an elevation of growth. So every stage will highlight a new challenge or a new mindset block that we need to work through. But there's also the element of that it's not as deeply seated anymore. So you're able to, once you have the tools, you're able to pull yourself out a lot quicker. So in things that used to spiral you out of control for days, like I remember I used to go into, like back when I was working in corporate, it was a really could have been, it was quite a toxic environment for some elements of it. And so I would get in a spiral of blaming, right? And blaming and justifying and really just getting angry about things that I couldn't change. And that, you know, back then it'd be days that I would be in that really bad mood. Whereas now that I have the tools, it's like I have the awareness around it and go, what am I choosing? Because I get to choose every single day of my life how I want to feel, and I get to take that power back. And I think that that's so powerful to be able to have that awareness. You know, 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't even a thing that you didn't realize that you could actually control your own emotions. You thought you were subject to them, right? And you had to live your life, and it wasn't something you could control. So it is a whole complete shift of mindset, and it's being able to pull yourself out much quicker. Something you could at best suppress, which, as we know, is not a healthy thing to do. I know this very well from personal experience. But yeah, absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it? And that suppression just leads to coming out physically, right? That's when we start to see physical ailments come out. And I know that you absolutely have experienced that. So there's so many challenges that if we don't start to wake up to those signs that the universe and our bodies and our brains are telling us that, hey, this is your wake-up call, like unless we start to listen to those wake-up calls will just keep coming until they knock us on our asses. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately. Ouch. But that's true. So what I think is really interesting is this is one of the 5 levers that you talked to me that we can use to help sort of amplify what we do as a community, is to actually help address these limiting beliefs, these mindsets in coaches, therapists, and healers and other practitioners. What are the really common ones that come up time and time again when you work with this community?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think everyone has their own individual journey, but there's definitely some correlations across. We all have different levels of fear, and how we use fear to drive us or how we use it to stop us is a different journey. But there's key things that I work on that I know for a fact that when it comes to business, there's some key elements that I need to work through. The first one, I guess, would be the belief systems they have around marketing and sales and around being in business for themselves. So sometimes there's challenges there. If they've never experienced business before, there can be challenges around what they believe their ability is. And then the others would be money mindset is a huge aspect of what I do, because of the fact that if we are asking people to pay us for our services, because it is something that we love to do, and it's such a gift to be able to help someone transform, that there is some, mindset belief systems around money about whether we're able to be paid well for what we do, and, being able to ask for money, and all the money belief systems that we have that are conditioned to us from childhood really can keep us stuck. The other one would definitely, the key one would be definitely the fear of success. Now, I work with a lot of women, and it is such a correlation across majority of women that have, and I don't mean that men don't have the fear of success, they absolutely do, but majority of the women that I work with, it is an absolute correlation that the fear of success is keeping them playing small. It is keeping them in a place where they don't believe they're worthy of it, and we are absolutely worthy of it. And I'm such on a mission, I guess, to encourage more and more women to speak their truth and to own their worth and to be able to charge what they're worth. And working through the fear of success is a huge element of that.
Yeah, beautiful. It's quite a counterintuitive one, isn't it? Because fear of failure, we understand that failing's a bad thing. Success should be a good thing. So why would there be fear around that?
We have quite a lot of challenges when it comes to the fear of success from if we've never experienced a certain level of success before, there is fear around that, because the way that our brain determines safety is through certainty. And so the way that it determines certainty is through finding out whether we've done it before and whether there's evidence to prove that it's safe. So our brains are referring back to our past to see if that's actually something that we've achieved before, whether we've put ourselves in that situation before, whether it's actually safe to pursue. And if we're going to new stages and new growth levels that we've never been before, and we're putting ourselves out there, we're putting ourselves up for judgment, we're challenging ourselves to do things we've never done before, our brain is going straight into, our whole body actually is going into our full fear response. And we need to be able to work through that rather than actually, hide from it. And I guess that fear is going to play out no matter what, but we need to be able to be aware of where is that keeping me small. And so the fear of success plays out in a couple of different ways. One, we've never done that actual thing before, so there's fear around the lack of safety. There is an element of not being able to handle what's going to come your way. That's a huge one. So we think, well, how am I going to handle that amount of money? How am I going to handle the responsibility? How am I going to handle the hard work? How am I going to handle the lack of time? What's it going to mean for my partner if I earn more money than them? What's it going to mean for my family if I'm away more than this many times out of the week? Like, there's so much uncertainty around it that we need to be aware of. And it's just an element of growth, but we all go through it on different levels at every stage of business. So you're absolutely right. We all have different layers that we work through. And as we peel some back, more come up. And it's much easier to work through them, I guess, or sometimes it's not, because sometimes it's even deeper that we go. But it's knowing that the more we elevate ourselves, the more work we do need to do to keep going. Otherwise, we can fall back into old fear-based patterns.
Yeah, I agree. I really see it as that pattern. It's that neural pathway that's been baked in since childhood. And for me, I really resonated with what you were saying before about being in your corporate career and looking for someone to blame when things happened, because I can relate to that feeling like a victim, or I guess sometimes like a prosecutor, you could look for someone to blame, but mostly as a victim. And that was a strong pathway for me. But being able to rewire that and step away from that has felt so empowering, because it's such a different place to be in when you're not feeling helpless and you're not feeling like a victim. And then as you say, there's other layers that come before or after that. But each layer that you break through in that way sets you up to be so much more empowered day to day, and makes it much more easy to sort of think of the opportunities and the positives and find them and work towards them, do the work that's needed to work towards them, rather than sort of spiraling into a more of a negative cycle.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So what about awareness in general? So a couple of years ago, I probably would have said to you, I don't have a fear of success, because I just wasn't aware. And it is something I've had to work through. But I think a lot of the time, and maybe this is men, I don't know, maybe this is just a male problem, but maybe it's just how we're raised. For a lot of us, there's just not that awareness to what's truly going on. The fear gets suppressed rather than analysed or understood or listened to. Do you find that a lot with the business owners that you work with? And if so, how do you sort of bring them on that journey so that they're ready to actually own this to begin with, which I would assume is the first step, to be aware and to own it and then to move forwards with it?
Usually they feel there's something not right. Right? They know what they need to be doing, but they're not doing it. They know they should be doing this, but they're really not taking the action on it. They know they should be showing up online, but they're not, and they know that there's fear around it. So there's an element of unease, and there's an element of like, either I'm not doing what I know I should be doing or could be doing, or there's an element of I want to go bigger and I want to go faster and I want to be able to go to that next level. And I know that I've got blocks that are actually stopping me. There's something that I need to be a different person to be able to get to that next stage. So there's those two kind of elements. But I think it's, it's so true. Like when you say, how do I know that I've got a fear of success? Well, sometimes we don't realize it, but we think we actually have a fear of failure. But then when we break it right down, it's actually not the fear of failure. It's actually the fear of success. It's really fascinating when you see someone go through that and it's like, well, actually, no, I don't really, because a lot of the time when we're entrepreneurial, we're quite, go-getters, we're high achievers, we're wanting to do things and we're putting things out there and we're trying new things. And that's the entrepreneurial mindset. So a lot of the time, if you're entrepreneurial, you don't usually have a fear of failure unless something has happened in the past that's caused a failure, right? So there's really interesting layers of it. And I feel like if you are already in your business, if you've already stepped into your purpose, then you've usually already overcome an element of the fear of failure, because you've had to have changed that belief system around it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taking action. You'd probably still be procrastinating.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that when they come to me, they're kind of at that next stage. So they've already been in the trenches. They've already tried things. They've already put themselves out there, and that they've had challenges, yes, but it's actually not the failure element that's keeping them stuck. Makes
sense. Yeah. And that fear of success layer. I mean, for me, I came to a cognitive, like a rational understanding that, well, look, if I create this monster and I feel like I'm out of control, then I just change it. So that was the rational light bulb. But then that didn't necessarily shift the fear down here either, because it's such a deeply ingrained pattern. So obviously you've got techniques to then help integrate that into the body or change that neural pathway more deeply.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually one of my favorite techniques to use. It's called embraining, and it's understanding that we have multiple neural networks in the body, that it's not just the logical thinking that we need to align. We need to align with our heart, which is where we connect, where we have our emotions, where we are actually feeling connected to other people, where all of our values of what's important to us. And then we have our gut, which is all our action center, our identity, and where we build trust with ourselves. So usually if they're not taking action towards something, there's something out of alignment. So they will say things like, I know what I should be doing, but I really want to do it. Like, it's really important to me, but I'm just not doing it. So I know the action center's out of alignment. Or it could be that I'm taking action, but I just feel like my heart's in it. So the heart's out of alignment. And it's so fascinating when you start to actually listen to people. People are using the language of the different neural networks in the body.
Wow.
And it's so beautiful to watch.
Like a gut feeling or listening to my heart. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to think things through. You know what I mean? Like, got to have conscious thought about it. Like, there's so much language that we use to actually look at which brain is actually out of alignment. And so there's a process I take people through to realign all of the centers in the body, so then they actually can take action and move forward. And they want to. So aligned with their values, they're so connected to it, they've got the how-to, and they just want to take that action and keep moving forward. Incredible.
That's really cool. Really exciting.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal process. It's it's a beautiful, it's really unique in the way that you take them through this process and being able to communicate with they call brains, so each of the brains, each of the networks. But then there's this beautiful moment at the end where they fall into alignment, and then there's just this clarity and this awareness, and then there's just this calm. It's just, it's beautiful to watch.
Wow. I have chills just thinking about it. That sounds lovely. So as I say, I think it's really cool that there's an alignment there with this idea. I really believe that together as coaches, therapists, and other practitioners, we can heal and transform the world. I believe if enough people can go through these sorts of transformations where they are feeling aligned, they're not held back by fears anymore, that little voice that says, bullshit, no, you can't, you're not up for this. And they're then able to actually live for their dreams and go after big, scary goals that would otherwise have held them back, and they're able to actually own that. I feel like that is where the world changes for the better. So really, really passionate in the same way that you are about helping the whole community as a whole level up in that way. And we got to talking about this, as I say, a few weeks back, and it was really, really cool. You had 5 things that you rattled off the top of your head that we can do to help the community level up. Are you okay if we sort of talk through those in a bit more detail?
Yeah, God, I got to remember what they were.
That's okay. I've got them written down. And we've already sort of talked about a couple. So one of them was addressing those blocks and around marketing and sales and the limiting beliefs, the fears of failure, success, the imposter syndrome, etc. So this is very much in your wheelhouse. Yeah.
All the inner work, for sure. And we've all got to do, and especially as coaches, we need to do our own self-work. Like, you don't necessarily always have to be working with a coach, but you definitely need to be coaching yourself. And I think that sets you apart from everybody else. You get to walk the walk and actually sort of just talking the talk. And you see that incongruence with people who are not actually not actually in alignment with what's real for them. And I think leaning into your authenticity, and once you've done all that self-work, you can lean into your authenticity and tap into your uniqueness, and that will feed into all the other elements that we're about to talk about.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a really nice one to start with. It's quite foundational, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it all comes back to the mindset for sure.
Yeah, and for our clients as well. So not just for us. But I think that's an important point. Every coach needs a coach. We're not immune to this stuff ourselves, and it's very, very hard to address this for ourselves when we're in it. I find the helicopter view, it's much easier to help a client than it is to help myself, for example. And it's lovely having that third-party perspective. Yeah,
we can't see our own blind spots. And I think that we go through stages. Like, I've definitely been through stages with having a coach and then not having a coach. And I think there's different elements of what you may need at different stages of your business. But I know that I've been able to accelerate my growth when I am working with a coach, for sure. But then there's an element, and what I love about what I do is that I'm able to work with a person for 7 to 8 sessions and actually work through so much in that period of time. And then I send them off to go fly, because I don't like to create any codependency. I want to be able to create all those shifts for them and then them to be able to believe in themselves enough to then go take all the action. So I think there's an element of working with a coach, but then not making sure that you're not dependent on them either. It's about them lifting you up and reminding you of how powerful you are on your own, and that building up that self-belief and reminding you of who the fuck you are, so then you can actually do the things that you want to do, and then have that element of time where you're actually out there doing it on your own, because that's going to help build even more self-belief.
Well, that raises, I think that's an excellent point, but it also raises some other questions in terms of a sustainable business model for coaches and therapists and other practitioners. Do you mind if we take a bit of a detour and explore what that looks like for you? Because I know you've created this amazing business for yourself. And so if you're taking people for 6 to 8 sessions, and maybe that runs over a couple of months, and then after that you have to find new clients because you're sending them on their way. So how do you then get a sustainable business model, sustainable income, etc.? What does that look like for you? How have you structured that?
Yeah, cool. That's a really good question. So I have multiple streams, right? So different revenue streams that feed into my business, from my events, from my keynote speaking, from sponsorships, from my one-on-one coaching, from my group program. So I have multiple streams, and it's about finding what works really well for you. And then I believe when you're in alignment with that, the money comes. It's a byproduct of what you're creating. And so, early stages of business, I tried all different types of things. I tried doing longer programs. I tried doing shorter ones. I tried doing online teaching programs, not necessarily in-person coaching, and masterminds and workshops, like all of it, to play around with what felt right for me. And that 7 to 9 week mark is my sweet spot. Like, it's just works so well with me and with my clients to be able to go through certain elements of business that we always need to then clarify and get better at, or elevate, or upskill, or scale, and then doing all the mindset work alongside it. And then that's enough for them to be able to then go off and shine. And so that's like the sweet spot that feels right for me. And then I have other clients that then from that 7 to 9 week program, they then stay on as a retainer. So they then stay on as monthly. And then I have other clients that are part of my group program, which is 6 weeks. So, and I do that different times of years, different times throughout the year. And then I have a mastermind as well that I'll run. So it's about finding what's right for you, I guess. And I think that definitely multiple streams helps for sure.
Yeah, lovely. And it sounds like you're leveraging your time really well there with group programs, but also online content, etc. But it does sound like a lot of moving parts. So how are you able to juggle all of this? You must be using technology and team and other ways to leverage yourself really well, is my assumption.
I actually love the variety of it. So I thrive on variety. It's one of my core needs, and it's always been something that I don't get frazzled by all the moving parts. I actually like moving from one thing to the next. So there's ways that I manage my one-on-one clients. So then my one-on-one clients get the most support from me. I am there. I am invested in their business as much as they are invested in their business. So that's probably my most time consuming. And then I basically branch things out throughout the year. So I know what I've got coming up. And so I'm not launching more than one thing at a time, and I'm not stretching myself too thin. And I only take on 6 one-on-one clients at a time, because I want to be able to give them that absolute utmost support. So look, yes, so I have, so I get support, obviously. I need that support to be able to help. Technology definitely helps. But yeah, I think I'm just really good at balancing all those moving parts. For lack of a better answer, I have always been a high achiever, and it's something that I've always been independent in that way, that I can manage lots of multiple moving parts.
Yes, that sounds very leveraged. And I think this also talks to the second lever that you talked about when we had our chat, that we can help coaches, therapists, and practitioners around, which is empowering them through that understanding of how these things work in business, through the technology, through coordinating together, through the marketing, how they get themselves out there and their energy into the universe. So I think this is a really powerful space, and obviously through this sort of conversation, we can share with people what does that look like in one business versus another business? How does this work for you versus someone else?
Yeah, you've got to find a viable business model that works for you, for sure. And everyone's level of version of success is going to be different. So it's not one size fits all. And there's so many options out there now that you can do so many different things. Like, one of my clients runs a monthly membership that runs for a whole year. And that works really well because it sets her up to have that consistent income, and it's something that really lights her up to show up in that membership every single month. And that's awesome, right? And that works for her. But you've got to find what works for you. Otherwise, there's no point. If it doesn't align with you, then you'll end up just not feeling connected to it, and you actually won't follow through on it. So I think that's really important to find what works for you. And the only way you do that is through action. But then I want to actually just tack on to what we were just saying before, that I'm not at the highest level that I want to be. And I'm also working through every level of growth. And, as I do different things and put myself in different situations, I'm also working on the mindset elements and also getting support. So the next stage for me in my business is definitely to hire staff, right? Like that's absolutely the next stage. And that brings with it a whole nother barrage of, mindset blocks. And I've managed team before, but not in my, I think it's something that, when this is my baby, like this is my beautiful evolution of what I've created in the world. And there is a lot of fear that comes alongside that and letting other people into that realm. So I think that, even though I'm sharing my journey, please know that I've found that along the way by taking massive action and just consistently showing up and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. But it does not mean I don't have a hell of a way to go, right? So I just want to kind of put that proviso there that with this, we both still have heaps and heaps to go. So please just find out what works best for you, create a viable product, but be mindful that you want to make sure that you're creating a business that is going to be sustainable. And that's when I come back to what lights me up and what feels aligned for me, because otherwise it's not going to be sustainable. So I remember when I was talking to a friend of mine who is also a coach, and she's creating a longer program. So she's creating a 6-month program. And for me, that doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I need to work with clients that long, because the deep work that I do is so transformational that they need to go off and then experience that next stage of growth before they can come back to me and then do some deeper work. So it's interesting. And this is why, with the way that I coach is about, if I'm an open book to my clients for sure. I'm going to share with them every element of what I do and how I market myself and what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, all of that. But that doesn't necessarily take away from their journey, and they've got to do it their way. And I would never, ever tell anybody what to do. It's about you finding what's right for you and you taking the action to then figure out what feels right. Because there's no one size fits all.
I love that advice. So you would find that with your clients. Yeah, absolutely. But I imagine you would find with your clients that there's not one formula you can say, hey, here's what you do in your business. They have to find what works for them. If they like all the moving parts, then that's the way that they'll do it. If they like to keep things simple, then they'll do it differently.
Yeah. And I think that's, that's really important to me, because I've had clients come to me and say, look, I've been told by coaches before that I have to do it this way. And then when we really dive into it, it's actually completely out of alignment with their values, with their core needs. And it's pushing them so far out their comfort zone that it's never going to be sustainable. So I think there's a difference between something that's so far out of your comfort zone that it's going to help grow you, compared to it being completely out of alignment with who you are as a person, what's important to you, and then trying to do things another person's way when you can go find your own way to do it. There's no right or wrong. Do you know what I mean? And there's always good to have fresh eyes on your business to try new things. And I'm always a firm believer of trying new things. If something didn't work, figure out what else could work. But I even remember talking to one of my clients that went through one of my group programs last year, and she was like, well, I help them uncover their strengths and just lean into their strengths. And so she was such a good connector and such a good people person that, the online marketing world scared the crap out of her, and she didn't want to be pushy, and she didn't want to be salesy online. She didn't want to be marketing the next big thing and join this class and do this and then do this. And that really felt out of alignment for her. And I was like, cool. So don't do it. Don't do it, because it's not going to work anyway, right? It's not going to work if you have the mindset of the fear around it, that it just feels wrong to you. Like it's completely out of alignment with your values. It's actually not going to work. So I just encouraged her to go out there and connect with more people, go and meet more people in person. And now she's like, I'm like, that's marketing. If you're going out and meeting new people, you're having conversations, that's marketing. You're marketing yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And in this day and age, there's so much of that online, so much of that noise that, hey, this could be a fresh approach. This could actually cut through.
Yeah. And I even had another client that was building her business all online, and one of her core needs was connection. It was the biggest of her values was connection. And she was creating this online course where she had no interaction with the participants. And so she created this whole course. She was ready to launch it, and she was just not taking the action. And she came to me and she's like, I don't know why, but I'm procrastinating and I'm not putting it out there. I don't know what to do. And I was like, cool, so let's figure out what the hell's going on. And so we worked out that her core need was connection, and it wasn't being met. She was isolating herself. She was sitting in her room at home, and she wasn't meeting people. And she is one of those people that is just such a people person that it would be just such a disservice to the world to lock her up in a room and sit behind a computer. So once she realized that, she was able to then completely change her business model, where now it's all in person. And there's elements of it online, which is great, but there's so much that's still with connection. So it's not at all connected.
So really, to help level up the community, it would be great to have a library of different business models that different people choose, just to give us some ideas as to what might be something we can try.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a good idea.
All right, we'll get onto it. I think this podcast is a good starting point. So go and listen to the other episodes, and if you're listening to this one, and you can hear how other coaches have set up their businesses as well. So I also love that idea that we've got the comfort zone, and then I'm trying to remember that diagram. I think the learning zone, and then if we push too far, we enter the panic zone. And then you're also talking about just another zone altogether, which is just complete lack of alignment with your authentic self. And if you're not authentic, then it's not going to work. It's not going to line up for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. That's a good framework, a good way of thinking of it. So the other three levers that you talked about are all really about bringing our potential clients on the journey with us, because it's still it's a space that's sort of gaining a lot of ground. It's gaining a lot of popularity, I think. Getting a coach is becoming more mainstream. But for a lot of people, it is still thought of as a bit woo-woo, or there's still a lot of that stigma around mental health issues, if that's where you're starting from, or just needing that sort of support in the first place. So I think it's really a valuable lever that we can work on, and whether that's through marketing or whether that's us all getting together and trying to put something out there that helps people go on that journey. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's important to decipher where you want to sit. For instance, like thinking about your niche and where you want to work. Do you want to work in the mental health space? Do you want to work in business space? Do you want to work in self-love? Like, do you want to work in empowerment? Do you want to work in relationships? Like, there's so many different niches that you could sit yourself in, and that doesn't mean you create your own as well. Like, set yourself apart from everybody else and create your own. The clearer you get, the easier it is to be the go-to person, the person who is known what it is that they do. And the reason, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an expert. You can be a contributor to that conversation, but at least people will know how to recommend you and who to recommend you to if they know exactly what it is that you do. But I think, it's getting clear on, I think the stigma is changing. I think more and more people are getting therapists and coaches, and the mental health space is definitely elevating, which is amazing. But I think we need to be clear on where coaches fit. So, where you, in the coach space that you want to sit as well, right? So there's different levels of coaching from, you've got your psychologists, you've got your counselors, and then you've got your coaches. But then in that space, you've also got people who call themselves coaches, but they're actually just teaching their methodology. So they're actually in the market and they've had experience and they're actually teaching their methodology, which is great. And then there's other coaches that are actually teaching strategy. So they're giving the skills to actually take that to the next space. Then there's education, where they're actually just teaching you something that they've learned, right? So it could be they're bringing other skills into play and they're teaching you through education. Then there is mindset, where we're actually going deeper into understanding your psyche, to understand what turns you on, for lack of a better word, and helps to shift you from where you are to where you want to be. And it's very much future focused, right? Whereas psychologists and counselors are very much focused on the past or something that's happened, and it's about talking through, making sense of it, and diagnosing mental health issues. Whereas coaching is so much more future focused that we're able to then understand that, yes, this may have happened to you in the past, but that doesn't necessarily have to define you, and we can then shift that so you can move forward for the future. And then there's healers, right? Energetic healers. There is the emotional healing. There's breath work. There's so many different modalities now that are coming up, which is just so awesome. And I think the more and more that we're talking about it and the more that we're sharing the tools that we have, the less stigma there will be around it for sure.
Love that. And getting really clear on where you fit into that. And there might be a broader piece there on helping the community understand all these moving parts and where different people fit in and what they might need the most. Because I think it works best when we get help across all of those layers. From, like, it's great to have skills, but if you haven't addressed the mindsets, then you're not going to go very far with those skills, for example. So you kind of need all of it.
There's a place for every single one of them, for sure. And there's enough clients out there for every single one of you. So please don't ever think that there's too many coaches, or please don't ever think that there's too many whatever it is that you'd like to be. There isn't. There is plenty of people in the world that need your gifts and need your services. So what I mean by niching, it's not about discounting people or not actually servicing certain people. It's about just getting clear on your message. So then when you go out to people and people say, what do you do? It's very clear on who you help. Yes. I think that makes it much easier for people to then decipher, what problem do I go to you for? And so there is different places. And I remember having a conversation with a coach who came to me early on, and it was, she was very, very early stages, and she was really unclear on what type of coach she wanted to be. And I guess the best way for me to describe how that conversation went was, I was like, think about where you want to sit. Do you want to help people with goal setting and accountability and just be, at their, like, literally checking in with them on a regular basis? And that's an accountability coach. Do you want to be working on that deep-seated belief systems and transformational work? Then that's utilizing NLP, utilizing different modalities that understand how the brain works and how you can shift those neural pathways and change the networks that are happening and causing us to be conditioned in a certain way. Or is it that you want to work with energy, or is it that you want to do breath work? Like, there's so many different modalities there. And I think when you get clear on who you want to help and what problem you want to solve, it gets much clearer on how to market yourself.
Nice. The other thing we talked about on bringing people on the journey, and this is probably the last thing that we'll touch on in this space, is that this work just isn't for everyone. And you need to be able to identify those people that are capable, because otherwise they won't follow through. That's not a good look. You might get some money out of them, but really, if they don't get a great outcome, you're not going to feel great about that. But also, they're not going to give you a good testimonial, and it doesn't sort of snowball on from there. So how do you think about that? And how do you identify those that are ready to go on the journey with you versus those that really maybe aren't capable and they're just not ready yet?
I think in early stages, you go through these lessons. So you will end up being unclear, or you start off being unclear. And I've definitely been through this myself, where I was unclear on who it is that I wanted to help. And I didn't want to not help people who came to me who were in need, right? So we sometimes take on clients that aren't really in the right fit for what it is that you do, and yet you take them on board from a place of scarcity or a place of lack, and you learn lessons very quickly. And so I think that you need to do the do to be able to figure that out for yourself. But I think that people need to be willing, and I think some of the things that I'll have clients come to me with is something like, if they ever say that, they want someone else to do the work, or they're not, or they're in that place of blame and justifying. And if I'm not able to shift their mindset in usually one session, then they're not ready for the work. So being able to allow them to go out and, I obviously send them off with other tools to work through to then get to that next stage, but they must be willing and open to the work that we're doing. And that's when they might be ready for an accountability coach rather than the deep work yet. Right? So that's why we all fit in different elements. So I think there's certain questions that you should be asking yourself first before you start to work with a client. Who is it that you want to work with? What are your non-negotiables, right? So there's got to be some non-negotiables that you have in place of what specifics it is important to you to take on clients, right? So for me, one, they have to be willing. Two, they want to actually do the deep work. They've got to be ready and willing, ready to go, and they're open to diving in deep. That's pretty much, and they want to make an impact in the world. That's pretty much my 3 non-negotiables. And that helps me to decipher who it is that I work with. And now, obviously, with my longevity and what I've been doing, is that I can see and I can feel and I can experience that client, and I can know whether they're ready.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, there've been times when I've taken on clients that weren't the right fit and I learnt my lesson, and then we get clearer. And then the next time you see those red flags and you don't do that.
Nice. I love that. So some good general guidance there, but obviously it's something we're going to have to, each professional, each practitioner has to learn for themselves based on the problems that they solve and the things that they don't solve and the work that their clients might need to do before coming to them.
And I think that really helps you stay within integrity. Like if I have a client come to me that I know that I'm not the right fit for them, and I know that they might be in stages where they actually need to upskill, or they need the strategy, or they need marketing. Like I don't do marketing. I even had actually a client come to me and we were working through all the mindset stuff. And then she said, I need help with clearing my desktop with all of my files and getting my file system set up. And I was like, I don't do that. And she was like, oh, well, thank you for saying that, because I've actually had other coaches say that, oh, yeah, I can do everything. Like, don't be a do everything. Be a specific person who actually will help them create a result, and you will go so much further than trying to be the jack of all trades for everybody, I believe.
I agree. And I think it applies even if you can do everything, even if you can help them clear up their desktop. Is that really where your highest value activity is? Or should you be focused on leveraging yourself in a much more consistent way?
Because that sets you up to be much more sustainable, right? Like when you're in your genius and when you're elevating them to that next stage and you're able to create such an incredible result for them, specific to what it is that they need, they're going to be a raving fan for you. They're going to become an advocate for you. They're going to refer you on to other people, and you become known as the go-to person in that field. But if you're like trying to do jack of all, people literally are like, oh, yeah, she's a coach. What specifically does she do? Like, who is she for and what does she help you with?
Oh, she does everything. Oh, good.
Yeah. But you know what, though? Then you become resentful as the coach. You keep saying yes to things, and it's an element of self-love. It's an element of self-respect and people-pleasing. And we end up saying yes to too many things. Then we get burnt out, or we get to a point where we actually become resentful towards the people we're working with because it's not actually within our genius. So it's so important. Like, get as clear as you can with where you're at, take action, get feedback, and then readjust.
Love it. Clarity, clarity, clarity. And underpinning all of that, mindset.
It's what I'm all about.
Love it. All right. Well, we've probably come up to time for today. Is there anything else you wanted to leave us with some parting wisdom? And also, I want to hear about what's going on for you. I know you've got a new program kicking off soon. Can we hear more about that and get involved with that?
Sure, absolutely. So yes, my Elevate Intensive program is actually starting next week. So it's starting on Tuesday, and it's a 6-week business mindset program, and it's offline and online. So I do an element of online, which is designed to help support you through shifting the mindset blocks that are keeping you stuck. We work through all of those fears. We work through money mindset. We work through your business values, all of it to help elevate you to that next stage of growth. And then we do an in-person business mastermind, where we do a 3-hour mastermind together to success plan for the next few months. And then we do a celebration lunch. So I'm such a people person, so I need to be in their space. So I'd love that I can do a bit online, a bit offline. So that's happening Tuesday. So if that's something that resonates with you and you're feeling like you're frustrated and stuck and you just cannot take things to the next stage, then reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And in regards to advice, other than like take action, is that you're never going to feel ready in any stage that is uncomfortable for your growth. So growth is uncomfortable. And actually, I'm going to recite one of my clients who said to me yesterday, and I just loved it. She's like, courage over comfort. Courage over comfort. And I just love that because growth is uncomfortable, and each stage of business is going to require a new version of you. And you may not feel ready, but that's because it is ready for you, right? So we need to be able to push ourselves to that next stage, but know that we need to just focus on the courage, not staying comfortable.
Beautiful. Courage and the vulnerability to ask for help, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We all need a coach at some point.
Nice. Well, thank you, Christine. That was amazing. And parting wisdom and all, we've done really well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, Christine. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
There you go, Christine Corcoran. Wasn't that great? I thought there was heaps of really specific and practical, pragmatic advice there for us as coaches, therapists, practitioners, and ways we can think about building out our business, very experimental, trial and error, and ways that we can think about as a community lifting what we do and bringing our clients on the journey with us so that they're ready to do the work. So that was awesome. I really love that. So if you do have any questions for us around that, hit us up in the comments. I'm sure Christine would love to hear from you. And we'll also link to Christine's website and her Elevate program in the show notes as well. And let us know in the comments as well, what was your biggest takeaway? Was it about something for your own business? Was it about your mindset and your experience of that? Or was it about what we can do with the community as a whole? Because I'd love to hear that. I really do want to see how we can amplify what we're doing together, because I do believe this is how we heal and transform the world. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Until next time, take care. Bye.
That was the Heal and Transform podcast with Andrew Ramsden. If you enjoyed the episode or found it valuable, ask yourself, who else do you know who would benefit from it? Pass it on or send them to healandtransform.org/podcast. And until next time, remember, to make a bigger positive impact, we need to leverage ourselves, tap into the right technology, and collaborate, because we can only heal and transform the world together.